From the International Society for Technology and Education, ISTE, there are 7 standards for educators. The 7 standards are learner, leader, citizen, collaborator, designer, facilitator, and analyst. Not only do these 7 standards apply to modern educators, but they also apply to our students. This presentation will explore the first of these standards for educators, learner. Important aspects of being a learner as a teacher means we are looking for ways to improve our classroom. We observe other teachers where applicable and think of ways we can incorporate elements we liked from them. We should explore practices which seem promising, especially when they use technology. As we move further and further into a digital age, it is our responsibility to improve student learning in all aspects, which includes technology. Technology is a literacy which all people must learn to interact with any job. We can also look at proven practices and see how we can adopt and adapt them into our classroom. During this presentation, we will look at a few different ideas on how educators and students can use these standards in the classroom. First, it's important to set goals. We should constantly think about where we would like to be. Perhaps you struggle with going home at the end of contract hours because of piles of grading. It would be a good idea to evaluate why you have so much grading. What are some ways you can reduce your pile of grading? What is your goal for grading quickly and efficiently so you aren't racking up hours of unpaid overtime? What are your goals for the school year? What would you like to accomplish and learn? How can you improve your responses to inappropriate interruptions during instruction time? A good way to think of this in terms of our students is to think about what goals they can set in our classroom. What do you want to learn in this class? What do you want to be able to do better by the end of this course? What grade do you want in this class? What are you going to do to achieve your chosen grade? How can you be an active learner in class? By reading student responses, we can look at their desires and see where we can make tie-ins to our course content. We can also reevaluate throughout the course time, whether quarter, semester, or trimester. We can ask questions like, how have I accomplished my goals? What areas can I still improve on in my instruction? What steps do I need to take to better meet my goals? Our students would be asked similar questions. Am I accomplishing the goals I set at the beginning of the school year? Am I earning my desired grade? Why or why not? How can I do better in this class? This allows us to evaluate ourselves and teaches our students to self-evaluate. The next level of being a learner is knowing how to network. This is not traditional networking where we might lobby ourselves for a job based on who we know. Instead, this is networking to better understand ourselves and our jobs. As professionals, we often find interest in the subject matter we teach, and others we don't. It's important to connect with other teachers around the world, and even in our own communities, to better learn how teaching operates. Joining websites like Reddit and participating in a teacher or teaching subreddit will help teachers feel solidarity. Teachers also act as a sounding board of ideas. If you have an idea, you can post to the larger community and ask for feedback or ideas if you are struggling. Online forums create spaces where teachers can discuss new and old ideas, all while forming a better classroom. How does this apply to our classroom? Try getting students to network in class. While Reddit may be too adult-oriented for students, there are plenty of other options. Arrange with another teacher on Reddit to exchange electronic communications between your classes as part of an assignment. Students can discuss how different and similar their schools are with other people their age across the country or across the world. If you know a foreign language or teach a foreign language, consider getting in touch with a teacher who teaches in your language in their classroom. Ask students to practice communicating with each other. For example, a Spanish class could exchange letters with students learning English in Spain, Mexico, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Uruguay, Nicaragua, Panama, Guatemala, etc. Students learning Spanish would write letters communicating their thoughts and ideas in Spanish, while the opposite would be true for those learning English. Both students can correct each other. For example, you should use this word instead for clarity or for this meaning situation. Networking is about more than who you know, it's about who you learn from. With the world connected like never before, we have more opportunities to witness and learn more and more perspectives to broaden our understanding of a global world. For something more local, students could create correspondence with a different school district in the state and learn about how communities, even close ones, can be dramatically different from one another. As teachers, we understand the importance of good and accurate research. Not only do we teach our students how to research for various projects, but we also need to keep in mind we should be constantly researching as well. Ask yourself, how much do I know about Montessori practices? How can I better teach my students SEL during this unit? What are people discovering in classrooms? What methods can I be teaching my students to ensure their academic success? What methods can I learn to better my instruction? What are other teachers doing around me? Research is a core foundation of learning. When curious about a topic, we should create an automatic response where we consult places or people for more information. The same goes for our students, building the response which says, I need more information. Not only is research important, but good research becomes even more critical. We can't trust everything we find on the internet. It's important to remember the principles of good research and verify the information we get comes from reputable sources. We can teach our students to do the same thing with source tests, such as the CRAP test. While going through this presentation, I provided a few ideas for ways you and your students can be learners. Each one has the potential to lead students to be lifelong learners. I'm going to show you a few more options for ways students can learn in the classroom. For this activity, you will want to go to easel.teacherspayteachers.com. Easel is a free service provided by every teacher's favorite website, Teachers Pay Teachers. The website allows you to create interactive activities for your students, which they use on the computer. For example, in my class, I will have an Easel activity available for absent students. Since participation is part of their grade, they are responsible for accessing the digital version of my in-class activity and completing it to make up their points for that day. Let me show you how to build an activity on Easel. This is the screen you'll see once you log in with your account. Their assessment feature is still in beta, but you can build a simple interactive activity by clicking Create in the top menu. The button is blue. Once you selected Activity, you can start with a blank slate or upload a PDF. I want to create an activity for my students to practice identifying their parts of speech. First, I will write out their instructions for the activity by selecting the text option. I can change the text colors and size, as well as several other options you see here. Instructions. In the sentence below, identify the correct part of speech for each word. Drag and drop the part of speech under the word. Then, I will provide an example sentence using the same option I did previously. Sentence. Hang on, my kittens are scratching at the bathtub, and they'll be upset by the lack of biscuits. Thirdly, for the parts of speech, I want them to be movable for students and be easy to spot. I can use the shape to draw out the size I want my parts of speech to be. Note, you can edit the size at any time. You can type directly into the box by double-clicking into the shape and starting to type. The way we make the shape movable for students is by hitting this movable button, which pops up when it is highlighted. You can copy and paste the same shape by using the same shortcuts Control-C and Control-V, which are used across programs. Once finished with my online lesson, I can preview it here and interact with the lesson as my students would. It allows you to drag and drop pieces. Simple, interactive, and help students learn to interact with technology. Audiobooks is another example of ways to get your students interacting with the material. Teachers know all too well how hard it is to get students to read independently. If given the choice, they won't. It doesn't matter how long we spend choosing material, how relevant we try to make it, or how modern the text is, students won't read. Even my own experience with honors students showed me students don't read. And to be fair, I didn't either as a student. An act of teenage rebellion I learned in 6th grade. Yet, reading is important. What's another way we can get students to read? Listen to the audiobook version as a class. Make sure while you listen, you stop and ask students to respond to the audio with various questions. It's also a good idea to have a reading packet which asks students to think critically about the text and provide evidence, which makes sure they are following along with the audio. The last option we can use in class would be student annotation on Canvas. Canvas recently added a new feature we can use in classes which allows students to annotate PDF documents we create. To show you how this works, I'm going to open my Canvas course. Currently, I am in my files. This is important because I want to show you how the annotation works in conjunction with what you create. From the screen, you can see the audiobook files for my class, as well as everything else I have organized into various folders. The one to pay attention to is the Student Annotation Documents folder. When I set up an assignment as Student Annotation, Canvas automatically created this folder where my PDFs I uploaded are kept. I originally uploaded the PDFs into the folder I wanted them to be in for my own organization purposes. Canvas created a copy specifically for these assignments. By clicking into the Assignments tab, we can look directly at the annotation assignment I created. The Dreamland Burning Workbook is the assessment I created to measure student growth and understanding of various topics as we read our class novel. To see the document as the students will see it, we need to enter Student View. Once the student hits the blue button, Start Assignment, the PDF will load and allow them to work directly in the PDF. I have our Notes section, which gives students the context they need to understand the book we're reading. Then I have all the questions about the content in the book itself. When students are ready to answer questions or take notes or fill out any information in the packet, they have several options at the top of the screen. The first is a comment feature. You can change the color, which pinpoints a specific spot and allows you to leave a comment. The student can highlight important information with the highlight button. They can write directly into the document by selecting the text option. Strike through allows them to draw a line through something, which would work well if something needs to be removed or is irrelevant. They also have access to a free draw annotation, which they can use to draw pictures into their document. They can also put a box around items and leave comments about large sections. Once the student is done with their document, they hit Submit Assignment and their annotations are complete. For more information on the ISTE standards, visit iste.org/standards/ISTE standards for teachers, or use the link in the description box below. You can share some of your own ideas for how to create active learners in your classroom in the comments below.